The stackable clues poll is finally here. They offered us not just one, but 2 questions we can answer. Yahoo! When talking about a subject as delicate as clues or making major changes to the game, there's going to be a lot of controversy, a lot of people talking about different things. I want to just go ahead and say up front, I'm not even really that interested in talking about the specifics of how clues work. I want to talk about the polling system as a whole, and that's what this is going to be all about. And I'm going to be using this particular clue polls, two polls now, to talk about some of the player frustrations with the current polling system. You know it's going to be good when I start with a Reddit page pulled up. You know we're in for some high quality conversation. I am going to actually defend Reddit a tiny bit here real quick. I think sometimes Reddit has some bad takes, but I think a lot of times the people that post on Reddit, they can kind of smell whenever something's up, but they just don't know exactly how to fix that or how to voice why the smell is bad. They know that something's up. And I think that this person right here knows that something's up, and I would love to tell you what I think's up, but let me go over what they say first. So they're talking about the phrasing of polling and the questions that are being asked, which the phrasing is actually, the literal phrasing is actually a problem with this particular poll. Right here, to be clear, because we don't often ask questions like this, voting yes to one means you'd like to see the old 3-minute despawn timer restored. So if you vote no, you like it as is. That's a phrasing problem, but that's not what they're talking about here. The thing that they're pointing out is this is 2 questions. It doesn't really seem like you're asking for our feedback. It doesn't really seem like you want us to help iterate on this at all. You think you know what's good for the game, and you want it to be in the game. You want us to give an answer, and if we don't give that answer, then you don't want to move forward with it at all. That's kind of how 2 yes or no question things is coming across. Like if you in real life spoke to a real person, you wanted to have a conversation with them, they gave you 2 opportunities to do it and you had to say yes or no, that's not really a real conversation. And so the sentiment that comes from that, if you don't want to hear our voice via the poll or via whatever, then what do you want? You already know what you want. You want us to say yes. That's what a lot of people feel. Now, I'd like to actually take the time on what I think a poll should be, why I think Jagex did polls and continues to do them, what I think they mean for Old School right now and have before and should in the future. They're all basically the same thing, and thankfully we have this lovely document of them talking about how polls are made that we can go over. So back in October of 2022, they did a poll change, which a lot of people probably know. The percentage of yes votes did end up changing, but let's go through some of this fundamental stuff. So they say, we've been using polls to keep players like you in control of the game's updates ever since Old School Runescape launched back in 2013. Polling lets players get right into the decision-making process and allows your voice to be heard. This approach puts us at the forefront of community-driven games. When you voted to bring back Old School Runescape, we promised that we'd commit to making the game an exclusively community-driven service, where you could be certain we wouldn't make any design changes without your vote. These days, however, we feel that polls offer an illusion of choice, where you're voting on content we've already designed due to the level of detail expected from a full dev blog. So part of the changes they wanted to do at the end of 2022, they say, our aim is simple: make Old School the best game it can be for all the existing communities and potentially new ones. It's essential we get polls right. So here's the improvements we want to do. Our goals are: ensure that polling feels exciting and empowering for players. We want you to feel like you're involved in the decision-making process and that your input leads to meaningful change. Surprise and delight our players with impromptu and opportunistic content. Be able to poll content much earlier in the design process and avoid spending development time that could be better used elsewhere. Build community consensus rather than sowing division. Provide greater flexibility to create more detailed plans for Old School with content that shapes the game's future and delights players for years to come. Create additional flexibility around smaller changes. And then they've laid out like an actual roadmap to how they want to do the concept pitching and do all this stuff. I'm not going to go into that because, again, this only has 2 questions on it. So we probably don't need to go that deep. And also, this is already going to be a way longer video than I would like. But I do want to, now that I've established what polls are, what they should be, talk about what I think this poll does wrong, why I think there's controversy around it outside of the obvious, you're changing something. So some of the things they highlighted here, I think they do not do well in the poll, and I'll point them out after the fact, but let me go ahead and just say what the things are. I don't think having 2 questions in a poll is exciting or empowering for the players. I don't think it lets them feel like they're involved in the decision-making process and that their input is meaningful or leads to change. It doesn't seem like it's being polled early in the process. It seems like they basically already know what they want to do and have thought it out and planned it out and have it all ready to go right off the bat. And it doesn't seem like they're building community consensus with this. It does seem like there's a lot of sowing of division. Like, it doesn't seem like anyone's happy with any of this at all, or that there are people that are happy about it, but they're still like, it feels like everyone's making concessions in some regard. Like, a lot of people that are like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll just do both, and both groups will be happy. We'll vote to keep it the same and do stackables. Is like, people still have some tweaks they want with either of them, even if they're okay with it generally being that. Like, that seems the most common thing that I've heard from a lot of people, and this is obviously conjecture, is, okay, we'll keep it as is and then add stacking on top of it. But if I could change this or that, you know, I would like that. But those 2 core things, yeah, sure, whatever, we'll do that. Now, why do I think people have felt like that? Well, let's go all the way back to a month ago when this whole thing started. So, poll 84, April 2025, stackable clues and more. There was a lot of and more on here that actually has already been like put into the game and answered and everything. There's an Abyssal Sire rework, Melee at Zulrah. They changed chambers to where you could just do normal level CM layouts. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff that came from that. But the clue scroll thing, obviously quite controversial since we're having to go through it again. But basically, a lot of this comes down to doing unpolled things and not communicating with the community and then going, oh, oopsies, we've made a mess, and now we're making a mess in the mess, in the mess, in the mess. Like, we are so many layers deep on this now. I'll give a very, very brief TLDR because, again, this whole thing is I'm not trying to actually talk about clues, really, because I don't do clues and I don't have much of an opinion on it. They changed the despawn timer from 3 minutes to 1 hour, and it changed the game in a way that they didn't think would happen. And they went, oops, maybe we should make a more, air quote, official way to do this, and we'll have where you can actually, instead of doing the juggling method, we'll make it where you use scroll box. You can stack a few of them. Now, the problem with this is right here, addressing concerns. One key change we want to be upfront about is the reduction of the clue scroll despawn timer back to 3 minutes. This will happen regardless of whether stackable clues pass the poll or not. No one wants to hear that. We recognize this will be a controversial change, but we think it's not healthy for the game. And then they also, at the end of this, say that they'll continue to refine the system and enhance your gameplay without making it trivial. We'll monitor how it plays out, but to be absolutely clear, we will not be increasing the stack limit beyond 5. This is a firm cap, and we have no plans to expand it further. Now, the problem with this is, like, they don't say why for either of those things. Like, it makes sense that they would want to propose, like, I understand why they would say, we don't like the current system, let's give you a new one. But then they say, we're going to change the timer whether or not the new system's here or not. Like, they're basically like, do you want clue scrolls to be faster than doing it, like, juggling 3 minutes? Or do you want nothing? And people, of course, were not happy about that. And so now, question 1, should we revert the despawn timer? Now they're asking, they're not telling, which I think is the whole point of a poll. Is it not? Is that not what the foundation of this game is built upon? Is seeing what the players want and what they think feels good and doesn't feel good and trying to make a game that they want to play? Like, this to me is a no-brainer. You think you want to change it? Well, let's see. Do people want us to change it? And then question 2, should we add stackable clues into the game as described in the blog? And the problem with this question is, it's not should we have any form of stackable clues ever, it's should we do it exactly how we're asking about it? And so this goes back to the air quote bad faith poll phrasing. You leave the community no room to tell you that we do want stackable clues, but we do not want it the way you proposed it in the blog. Which, again, I don't know clues that well. But for me personally, that's kind of how I feel. I'm like, I don't understand where they got this number. Like, I don't really know why this is the perfect way of setting up clues and that the 5 cap needs to be firm or else something devastating will happen. I don't know. They aren't communicating with me, and I can't communicate with them other than doing things like this. And then for the last part of the video, I want to get into this growing sentiment. And it comes and goes, and every, 6 months or once a year or some increment of time. This happens every so often. People start making posts like this and go, the polling system needs to change. And then they actually change it. They did. They said polling changes, and they made a big list of how they wanted to start doing polls going forward. But then we still get into stuff like this, and it's a meme, poll X and add Chivalry for peers. And a lot of that comes with phrasing and putting things into blogs that they feel doesn't fit, or asking a question that seems like it actually has multiple questions pushed into together. And here you can see multiple different polls, multiple different iterations talking about Chivalry. It's a meme now that they're reworking Chivalry, that they really want to make changes, that people say they're trying to shoehorn it in. People act like there's an agenda to like there's conspiracies around doing these kinds of things now. They're changing things in such a way that people think they're being sneaky. And these 3 are not the only ones as well. The Royal Titans, which they did go over different prayer things. To be fair, they added 2 new prayers into the game, and then they also said, should we adjust the Chivalry prayer alongside this update? Put it all together. Should we change it? This includes making it unlock from Holy Grail and adjust Holy Grail to reward XP lamps upon completion. Again, this whole special PvP account build thing. And you can see the sentiment very easily if I scroll down a little bit. You see Jagex did a poll blog asking for feedback before releasing this poll. Players overwhelmingly gave feedback to separate the Chivalry questions. They did not. The poll failed. Why even ask our feedback? Now we get to go through the Chivalry repoll all over again. I really feel like there's multiple parts to this question. Question 3, should we adjust the Chivalry prayer alongside Royal Titans update as described in the blog? This includes making it unlock from Holy Grail and adjusting Holy Grail to reward XP lamps upon completion. That's 3 different things right there. Should we adjust the Chivalry prayer? Well, you're adjusting 2 other prayers with Royal Titans? Sure. Should we make it from Holy Grail? Well, maybe. You're changing the way a lot of quest progression works. Should we change Holy Grail to reward XP lamps upon completion? Well, maybe. That to me seems like 3 different questions right there if you want to accurately gather feedback and be able to make changes. And this is exactly why people are like, they keep wanting one defense Chivalry. They already know what they want. They're just looking for different ways to put it in to get to the community to say yes to it. And if I tap the board for the millionth time today, our goals are to ensure the polling feels exciting and empowering for players. We want you to feel like you're involved in the decision-making process and that your input leads to meaningful change. And I just don't feel like that's what we have going on here. It doesn't feel like there's great flexibility in the plans for Old School. And if you are worried about diluting the poll somehow, making things accidentally be confusing because people gave you too much information, maybe you should do the opposite. Maybe you should give a lot more information. Because if you're not communicating, then you get this whole stackable clues. We want to revert it. We are going to revert it. We know it's controversial. We do not care. We think it's bad. And then the next week they go, oh, well, following your feedback and to keep things true to how Old School works, we've decided to poll whether or not to do it. And that right there, that one sentence, that sums up the entire video. That's the TLDR. I'll put that timestamped. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. See ya.